Commander Jack Reed stood at the viewport of Orbital Defense Station Alpha, staring out at the vastness of space. His weathered face reflected in the reinforced glass as he watched Earth's combined space fleet conduct maneuvers. 12 ships. That was all humanity had managed to assemble in 50 years of space exploration. Still admiring our little collection, Commander? Admiral Susan Foster appeared beside him, her uniform crisp despite the late hour. They're good ships, Admiral, the best we could build. Foster nodded, her gray eyes tracking the ships as they moved in perfect formation. They'll have to be. The alert came 3 hours later. An unidentified object had appeared at the edge of the solar system, moving at impossible speeds. Within minutes, it was joined by others. 5, then 12, then 20 vessels of alien design. In the command center, chaos reigned. Analysts shouted readings across the room as officers tried to establish communication protocols. Reed stood perfectly still, watching the main screen as the alien armada approached. They're responding to our hails, a communications officer called out. The screen flickered and Reed saw his first alien. The creature had iridescent scales covering a humanoid face, 6 eyes blinking independently of each other, and a mouth full of needle-like teeth. People of Earth, the alien spoke in perfect English. I am Supreme Commander Zrax of the Vorshan, Hegemony. We claim your system in the name of the Eternal Empire. Admiral Foster stepped forward. This system is sovereign territory of Earth and its nations. We welcome peaceful contact, but the alien interrupted with a sound like grinding, metal laughter. Your claim is noted and dismissed. We have surveyed your capabilities, your fleet, if one can call it that. More of the grinding laughter. 12 ships. The Hegemony deploys more vessels to patrol a single asteroid field. Reed felt. His jaw tightened but maintained his composure. You will surrender your world and accept vassal status or face extinction, Zrax continued. You have 48 Earth hours to prepare your leadership for our arrival. The communication ended abruptly. Well, Foster said quietly. That wasn't the first contact scenario we prepared for. 3 hours later, the United Earth Security Council convened an emergency session. Reed and Foster presented what little they knew about the Vorshan vessels. Their technology is centuries beyond ours, Reed explained. Energy readings suggest weapons capabilities we can't even comprehend. Then we surrender? Asked the representative from the European Union, fear evident in his voice. No, Foster said firmly. We negotiate. We play for time. The council agreed to send a delegation. Foster would lead, with Reed as her second. The meeting took place on neutral ground, a space station hastily positioned between Earth and Mars. Reed studied the Vorshans as they boarded. Their movements were precise, almost mechanical. Each wore armor that seemed to shift colors with every motion. Welcome, Foster said. We hope to reach an understanding that benefits both our species. Supreme Commander Zrax made the grinding sound again. There is nothing to understand. You serve or you perish. For 3 hours, Foster attempted diplomacy while the aliens dismissed every proposal. Reed remained silent, observing. Something about the Vorshans bothered him. The way they moved, perhaps, or how their technology hummed at frequencies just below human hearing. When the meeting ended without progress, the Vorshan leader approached Reed directly. Your silence is wise, human. You recognize the inevitable. Reed met the alien's multiple eyes. We recognize nothing yet. Zrax leaned closer. Your tiny fleet amuses us. It will be an enjoyable diversion to crush it. As they departed the station, Reed pulled Foster aside. Admiral, there's something off about their technology. The way their ships move, like it's efficient but not elegant. What are you suggesting? Reed stared out at the massive Vorshan vessels. I'm suggesting we might have an advantage they don't expect. They're mocking our fleet because it's small, but I think there's more to this story. Foster considered his words. You have 24 hours to find that advantage, Commander. After that, we may have no choice but to submit. Reed nodded, already formulating a plan. They think our small fleet means we're weak, Let's show them what humanity can do when backed into a corner. Commander Reed didn't waste a minute of his 24-hour window. He headed straight to Earth's most advanced research facility, buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. There he found Dr. Alan Cooper hunched over holographic displays, his fingers dancing through streams of data. "Commander, I was expecting you," Cooper said without looking up. His eyes reflected the blue glow of the scanner results. "These Vorshan ships are something else." Reed nodded. "That's what worries me. But there's something about them that doesn't add up." For the next 6 hours, they analyzed every scrap of data collected during the encounter. Reed pointed out subtle anomalies in the aliens' ship movements while Cooper ran simulation after simulation. "Wait," Cooper said suddenly, freezing a particular frame. "Look at their turning radius compared to ours." Reed leaned closer. "They're wider. Much wider." "Exactly." Cooper's excitement was palpable. "Their ships are powerful, but they move like ocean liners. Ours move like speedboats." A slow smile spread across Reed's face. "They're using conventional propulsion systems, just scaled up. We abandoned that approach years ago. Earth's ships used a revolutionary propulsion system developed after decades of research. Technology that allowed for rapid direction changes and acceleration patterns impossible with traditional engines. What had seemed like humanity's stopgap solution might actually be their edge." "They don't think we're a threat because we're small," Reed said. "But that's precisely what makes us dangerous." Reed rushed back to headquarters where Admiral Foster was deep in strategy meetings with Earth's military leaders. "We can't beat them in direct combat," one general was saying as Reed entered. "Their firepower alone would obliterate us." "We don't need to beat them at their game," Reed interrupted, pulling up the data he and Cooper had compiled. "We need to play a different game entirely." He explained the maneuverability advantage, showing simulations of how Earth's ships could potentially outmaneuver the larger Vorshan vessels. "It's not much," Foster admitted, "but it's something." Reed nodded. "Dr. Cooper is already working on enhancements to exploit this advantage." Just then, alarms blared throughout the complex. On the main display, a Vorshan scout ship approached, one of Earth's lunar research bases. "They're early," Foster said grimly. The ultimatum had another 12 hours. They watched in horror as the Vorshan ship opened fire, destroying the outer facilities of the lunar base. Hundreds of lives were lost in seconds. "A demonstration," Reed said through clenched teeth. "They're showing us what happens if we resist." The main communication screen activated. Supreme Commander Zrax appeared, 6 eyes blinking in sequence. "A small reminder of the consequences of defiance," the alien said. "Your remaining time to surrender has been reduced to 6 hours." After the transmission ended, the room erupted in panicked discussion. Some military leaders argued for immediate surrender to prevent further loss of life. Others demanded a retaliatory strike, regardless of the consequences. Foster silenced them with a raised hand. "Commander Reed, how quickly can we implement your advantage?" "With emergency protocols, 4 hours minimum." Foster nodded decisively. "Then we have our answer. General Williams, evacuate all space facilities immediately. Colonel Patel, prepare civilian bunkers worldwide." She turned to Reed. "You have 4 hours to prepare our fleet. Make them count." Reed hurried back to Cooper's lab, where technicians were already modifying the first ship. "Will it work?" Reed asked, watching as the engineer made delicate adjustments to the propulsion system. Cooper wiped sweat from his brow. "In theory, yes. In practice, we've never pushed the systems this far." Reed stared at the schematics. Their tiny fleet against an interstellar empire. The odds were astronomical, but humanity had faced long odds before. "They mock our fleet because it's small," Reed said quietly. "Let's show them that sometimes the smallest predators are the deadliest." The Vorshan ultimatum expired with Earth's answer still pending. Supreme Commander Zrax, interpreting the silence as defiance, ordered a second demonstration. This time they targeted Orbital Station Gamma, home to over 2,000 civilian researchers and their families. "They're moving toward Gamma," reported Lieutenant Ryan from the tactical station. "Weapon systems powering up, Admiral Foster's face hardened as she watched the massive alien warship approach the vulnerable station. How many ships are ready with the modifications? 3, Commander Reed answered. The Dauntless, the Orion, and the Phoenix. Foster nodded grimly. It will have to be enough. Launch immediately. Reed strapped himself into the command chair of the Dauntless, Earth's newest vessel. It was small compared to the Vorshan ships, barely 1/8 their size, but now it carried humanity's best hope. All systems ready, reported his pilot, Lieutenant Kelly Boyd. Her hands hovered, over the controls steady despite the tension. Let's move, Reed ordered. Maximum stealth approach until my mark. The 3 Earth ships slipped away from the lunar base, using the moon's shadow to mask their approach. Ahead, the Vorshan warship loomed large against the backdrop of stars, its weapons ports glowing with gathered energy. They're targeting Gamma's life support systems, Boyd said, voice tight. Reed touched his comm. Phoenix, Orion, remember the plan? We hit them from 3 vectors just like we practiced. Boyd, prepare for attack pattern Delta. As the Vorshan ship fired its first volley at the station, Reed gave the order. Now! The 3 Earth vessels broke from their hiding positions, engines flaring with blue-white energy as they accelerated at rates that would have crushed unprotected humans. Only their advanced inertial dampeners made such maneuvers possible. Vorshan ship detected them too late. By the time its sensors registered the approaching threat, the Dauntless was already executing a tight spiral around its port side, firing precision shots at the larger ship's weapon emplacements. Impossible, the Vorshan weapons officer reported to Commander Zarax. The human vessel just executed a turn radius that should tear it apart. On the Dauntless, Reed felt the ship shudder as it pushed its new modifications to their limits. Keep it tight, Boyd. Don't give them time to lock on. The Phoenix swooped under the alien vessel, targeting its sensor arrays while the Orion executed a series of rapid direction changes that left the Vorshan gunners firing at empty space. They can't track us, Reed realized. Their targeting systems aren't designed for this level of maneuverability. For 6 minutes the dance continued. The Earth ships darted around the Vorshan warship like hummingbirds around a bear, too small and fast to swat effectively. With each pass they landed precision strikes that slowly degraded the alien vessel's capabilities. Then disaster struck. The Phoenix miscalculated a turn and drifted into range of the Vorshan's secondary weapons. A blast caught its stern, sending it spinning away, trailing debris. Phoenix is hit, Boyd reported. Life signs stable, but they're out of the fight. Reed gritted his teeth. Orion, cover Phoenix's retreat. We're going for their main power conduit. The Dauntless executed a maneuver that would have been suicide just days earlier, diving straight toward the Vorshan ship before pulling up at the last second, skimming along its hull while firing directly at a weak spot identified in Cooper's analysis. The shots connected. A series of explosions rippled along the alien ship's flank. Direct hit, Boyd announced, unable to keep the triumph from her voice. The Fortune vessel listed to one side, multiple systems failing. After a moment, it began a slow retreat, moving away from the station and back toward the main fleet. As Reed ordered their own withdrawal, he received an incoming transmission from Supreme Commander Zarax. This demonstration changes nothing, the alien hissed, though Reed noted a new undertone in its voice. You have merely delayed the inevitable. Back at Earth Command, Admiral Foster greeted Reed with a rare smile. We've bought ourselves some time. The question is, what do we do with it? Reed looked at the tactical display showing the massive Vorshan fleet still waiting beyond Mars. We expand Operation Mosquito. They thought our small fleet was a weakness. Now we make it our strength. The success of the first engagement galvanized Earth's resistance. Admiral Foster's war room buzzed with activity as leaders from every continent gathered to expand what they now officially called Operation Mosquito. Our advantage won't last forever, Reed cautioned. The Vorchans are already adapting their tactics. Lieutenant Kate Martinez, a former fighter pilot with a genius for unconventional warfare, stepped forward. Then we need to be more unpredictable, she said, pulling up a holographic map of the solar system. We've been thinking too defensively. Martinez pointed to various points throughout the system where the Vorchons had established outposts. They've extended their supply lines to maintain their blockade. That makes them vulnerable. Reed studied the map. Hit-and-run attacks on their logistics? It's risky. But it plays to our strengths, Martinez insisted. We attack where they don't expect, strike hard, and disappear before they can respond. Foster nodded. I like it. How soon can we implement? Give me 48 hours to train the pilots on. The new maneuvers, Martinez said. While Martinez worked with the pilots, Chief Engineer Paul Wilson made a breakthrough. He burst into Reed's office, eyes wide with excitement. Commander, I've found something in the data from our engagement, he said, dropping a tablet on Reed's desk. Their shield technology operates on a fluctuating frequency. There's a millisecond gap in coverage during each cycle. Reed studied the data. Can we exploit it? If we time our weapon pulses precisely, we can slip past their shields, Wilson confirmed. It won't work for long, they'll adapt, but it gives us another edge. Within days, Earth launched its counteroffensive. The upgraded fleet, now 8 ships strong with the completed modifications, split into 4 pairs and struck simultaneously across the solar system. Reed commanded the Dauntless and Phoenix team, targeting a Vorchon communications relay near Jupiter. Using Jupiter's massive gravity well to slingshot their approach, they appeared on the Vorchon sensors only seconds before impact. Fire on my mark, Reed ordered, as the Dauntless spun through a tight corkscrew, evading enemy fire. 3, 2, 1, now. Both Earthships fired precisely as Wilson had calculated. The shot slipped through the millisecond shield gap, striking the relay's power core. The structure erupted in a brilliant flash before going dark. Direct hit, relay offline, Boyd reported from the helm. Across the system, the other teams reported similar successes. Martinez's team destroyed a fuel depot. Another disabled a Vorchon scout ship. The 4th team disrupted a sensor array, creating a blind spot in the Vorchon defense network. Withdraw to rendezvous points, Reed ordered. Don't get greedy. The Earth ships vanished back into the vastness of space before the Vorchons could organize a meaningful response. Over the next week, Operation Mosquito expanded. Earth's small fleet struck 23 targets, gradually eroding the Vorchon occupation infrastructure while suffering minimal losses. They never engaged in direct battle, never stayed in one place long enough to be caught. In his command ship, Supreme Overlord Kazak raged at his subordinates. How are these primitives continuing to evade us? He demanded, all 6 eyes pulsing with anger. Commander Zarax bowed low. They are adaptable, Overlord. Their ships move in ways ours cannot match. Unacceptable! Kazak slammed a clawed hand against his throne. I want their fleet destroyed, their planet subjugated, and their leaders executed for this defiance. Zarax hesitated. Our current forces may be insufficient for this task, Overlord. Kazak went still, a more dangerous sign than his earlier rage. You suggest the mighty hegemony cannot defeat 12 primitive vessels? I suggest we bring the Dreadnought fleet, Overlord. End this resistance with overwhelming force. After a long moment, Kazak nodded. Send the signal. The Dreadnought fleet comes to Earth. Back on Earth, Reed and Foster celebrated their latest success when the alert came through. Massive energy signatures had been detected entering the solar system. Hundreds of them. They're bringing their battle fleet, Foster said quietly. Reed stared at the display, watching as uncountable enemy ships appeared. Then it's time for Protocol Omega. Earth Command fell silent as the tactical display filled with red dots, each representing a Vorchon warship. What had been dozens was now hundreds, a fleet so vast it seemed to blot out the stars themselves. Protocol Omega, Admiral Foster repeated, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. Are we sure? Reed nodded grimly. Dr. Cooper says his weapon is ready for testing. This may be our only shot. Protocol Omega had been developed as Earth's last resort, a desperate plan that would commit every ship they had to a single coordinated strike. It was as likely to end in humanity's extinction as it was to save them. Foster studied the faces around the command table. Then we put it to a vote. All in favor? One by one, hands raised. There were no dissenters. It's unanimous, Foster announced. Commander Reed, you'll lead the mission. As preparations began, Dr. Cooper invited Reed to his laboratory. The scientist looked like he hadn't slept in days, his eyes red-rimmed but bright with purpose. I call it the resonance disruptor, Cooper explained, showing Reed a small device barely larger than a coffee mug. When activated, it creates a cascade effect in certain energy fields, specifically the kind the Vorchons use for their main propulsion systems. Will it work? Reed asked bluntly. Cooper's expression turned solemn. In theory, yes. In practice, we've never tested it against actual Vorchon technology, and there's another problem. It has a limited range. You'll need to get close, very close. How close? Inside their defensive perimeter, practically touching their flagship. Reed absorbed this with a nod. Then that's what we'll do. Across, Earth civilians prepared for possible invasion. Underground shelters filled as people moved beneath the surface. Military reserves were activated, and makeshift weapons were distributed. If the Vorchons landed, humanity would fight street by street, building by building. The night before the mission, Reed couldn't sleep. He found himself in the observation deck, staring at the stars, many of which were now obscured by the massive Vorchon fleet. "Penny for your thoughts," said a voice behind him. Lieutenant Boyd stepped up beside him, her usual confidence tempered by the weight of tomorrow's mission. "Just wondering if we're doing the right thing," Reed admitted. "If we fail, there's nothing stopping them from destroying Earth out of spite." Boyd was quiet for a moment. "My grandmother used to say that the size of your fight matters more than the size of your dog." Reed smiled despite himself. "I think it's supposed to be the other way around?" "Maybe," Boyd shrugged. "But I like our version better." The next morning, Earth's entire fleet, all 12 ships, launched together for the first time. They formed a tight formation behind the Dauntless, Reed's flagship, as they headed towards Saturn, where the main Vortian fleet had established their command center. "This is Commander Reed to all ships," he broadcast. "Each of you knows what's at stake today. Whatever happens, remember that what we do here will be remembered as long as there are humans left to tell the story." A chorus of acknowledgments came back, resolute and clear. As they approached Saturn's orbital path, the enormous Vorchon fleet came into view. At its center loomed the Dreadnought, a vessel so massive it dwarfed everything around it. Supreme. Overlord Kazak's personal flagship, it was rumored to have destroyed entire civilizations. "They're hailing us," Boyd reported. Reed straightened his uniform. On screen, Kazak's scaled face appeared, all 6 eyes focused intently. "Commander Reed, have you come to surrender in person?" A noble but futile gesture. Reed met the alien's gaze without flinching. "Actually, we've come to offer you one last chance to leave our system peacefully." The sound of grinding metal and that terrible Vorchon laughter filled the bridge. "Your tiny fleet against my armada? You've come to die, nothing more." "We'll see," Reed said, signaling Boyd to cut the transmission. He turned to his crew. "Battle stations. All ships prepare to execute Protocol Omega on my mark." As alarm klaxons sounded across all 12 Earth vessels, Reed took a deep breath. And so it begins. The rings of Saturn shimmered like gold dust against the void as Earth's 12 ships approached the Vorchon armada. Reed had chosen this battlefield carefully. The dense particles in Saturn's rings would provide both cover and tactical opportunities. "All ships execute dispersal pattern Alpha," Reed ordered. "Remember your training." Like a flock of startled birds, Earth's fleet suddenly scattered in 12 different directions. The maneuver was so rapid and chaotic that the Vorchon targeting system struggled to lock onto any single vessel. "They're pursuing," Boyd reported, her fingers dancing across the controls as the Dauntless dove into the thickest part of Saturn's rings. Behind them, several Vorchon cruisers followed, their massive hulls plowing through the ice and dust particles. Unlike the nimble Earth vessels, the aliens could not navigate the fine details of the rings, crashing through rather than slipping between the debris. "They're exactly where we want them," Reed said. Lieutenant Martinez, are you in position? Affirmative, came Martinez's voice from the Phoenix. Ready to execute pincer movement on your command. Reed watched as the pursuing Vorshans spread out, trying to encircle the Dauntless. Now, the Phoenix burst up from beneath the ring plane, executing a tight loop that brought it directly behind the lead Vorshan vessel. Martinez fired a precise burst that struck the alien ship's propulsion system, causing it to lurch sideways into another Vorshan cruiser. Across the battlefield, Earth's ships performed impossible maneuvers, using Saturn's rings for cover before, darting out to strike and then disappearing again. The Vorshans, frustrated by their inability to track the smaller vessels, began firing blindly into the rings. They're getting desperate, Boyd observed as a massive explosion lit up a section of rings nearby. Reed nodded. Time for Phase 2. All ships converge on the dreadnought. Earth's vessels regrouped with practiced precision, forming a tight arrowhead formation aimed directly at Kazakh's flagship. The Vorchan fleet, noticing this apparent suicide run, moved to intercept. They're taking the bait, Reed said. Martinez, Orion Valiant, execute Operation Thunderstrike. 3 Earthships broke formation, accelerating to speeds that strained even their enhanced engines. They weaved through the approaching Vorshan defenders, targeting specific vessels identified by Cooper's analysis as having the weakest shield harmonics. The coordinated assault created exactly what Reed had hoped for, a momentary gap in the Vorchan defensive line leading straight to the dreadnought. Main force, follow me through the gap, Reed ordered. Maximum speed. The remaining Earth ships surged forward, exploiting the opening. But just as they approached the dreadnought, a hidden Vorchan destroyer emerged from behind Saturn's largest moon, weapons fully charged. Evasive maneuvers, Reed shouted, but it was too late. The destroyer fired directly at the Earth formation. Martinez's voice came over the comm. I've got this. Continue the mission. The Phoenix broke away, turning directly into the destroyer's path. Martinez fired all weapons, focusing on the Vorshan's forward guns. For a brief moment, the 2 ships exchanged furious fire before the Phoenix took a direct hit to its core. Martinez, Reed called out. Keep going, came her strained response before the Phoenix erupted in a brilliant flash of light, taking the Vorshan destroyer with it. Grief and rage surged through Reed, but he forced himself to focus. All remaining ships maintained course to the dreadnought. We finish this now. As they approached Kazakh's flagship, the massive ship turned to bring its main weapons to bear. Energy began gathering at the tips of enormous cannons. They're charging. Their primary weapon, Boyd warned. Estimated 15 seconds to firing. All ships, execute Cooper's gambit, Reed ordered. Now. The Earth vessels suddenly scattered, each executing a different trajectory around the dreadnought. The massive alien ship couldn't track them all, its weapon systems designed for larger, slower targets. The Dauntless, with Reed at command, dove directly under the dreadnought's belly, finding the exact spot Cooper had identified. Reed pressed a button, launching the resonance disruptor toward the flagship's hull. Disruptor attached, Boyd confirmed. Activation in 5 seconds. Around them, Saturn's magnetic field interacted with the device, amplifying its effect beyond even Cooper's calculations. The disruptor activated with a pulse of blue energy that rippled visibly across the dreadnought's hull. Within seconds, alarms blared across the Vorshan fleet as ship after ship reported catastrophic power fluctuations. The dreadnought itself went dark, its massive engines sputtering and failing. It worked, Boyd whispered in disbelief. It actually worked. The stunned silence on the Dauntless's bridge gave way to cautious celebration as the Vorshan dreadnought drifted powerless in space. Around it, dozens of other alien vessels suffered similar fates, their engines and weapons systems shuttered by the cascading effect of Cooper's device. Status report, Reed ordered, bringing his crew back to focus. The resonance disruptor affected 43% of the Vorshan fleet, Boyd responded. The rest are regrouping, but they're confused. They don't understand what happened. Reed nodded. Order all ships to fall back to defensive positions. Let's not get overconfident. As the Earth vessels retreated to a safe distance, Supreme Overlord Kazakh's flagship remained adrift. its massive hull now dark except for emergency lighting. Reed saw an opportunity. Admiral Foster, requesting permission to lead a boarding party, onto the dreadnought, he said over the secure channel. We may never get another chance to access their command systems. Foster's response was immediate. Permission granted, but proceed with extreme caution, Commander. Within the hour, Reed led a small team of 6 specialists across the void between the Dauntless and the crippled dreadnought. They found an entry point near what appeared to be an auxiliary command center. Breach successful, reported Security Officer Frank Miller as they cut through the final door. Atmosphere is breathable but thinner than Earth normal. Inside, the Vorchan ship was eerily quiet. Emergency lighting cast strange shadows across alien machinery. The team moved carefully through the corridors, following schematics that Cooper had theorized based on scans. Life signs ahead, Miller whispered, checking his scanner. One signature different from the others. They entered what appeared to be a private command room. Seated in an elaborate chair surrounded by flickering displays was a Vorchan officer. Unlike the others they had encountered, this one's scales were pale, almost white. The alien looked up as they entered. I am Subcommander Nexil, it said in perfect English. I surrender myself to your custody. Reed kept his weapon raised. Where is Kazak? Escaped, Nexil replied. Emergency transport to another vessel before systems failed completely. The alien's 6 eyes blinked in a pattern Reed now recognized as indicating stress. He abandoned us. The revelation surprised Reed, but he maintained his composure. Then you're in command of this vessel? What remains of it? Nexil said with a bitter edge to its voice. I am authorized to negotiate terms. While Reed's team secured the alien commander, Cooper and Wilson arrived to examine the dreadnought systems. What they discovered stunned them all. It's a lie, Cooper said, staring at the data streams flowing across his tablet. The entire hegemony. It's nowhere near as vast as they claimed. Wilson nodded, pointing to a star map they'd accessed. According to this, they control only 27 systems, not the thousands they boasted about. And most of those are in rebellion. Reed turned to Nexil. You've been bluffing. The alien commander's scales shifted color slightly. Embarrassment, perhaps. The hegemony was once great, spanning hundreds of systems. But internal conflicts and resource depletion have reduced us. We needed your world's resources to forestall our collapse. So you attacked us out of desperation, Reed said, understanding dawning. Yes, Nexil admitted. And fear. Our scientists studied your species. Your rate of technological advancement is concerning. In a century, you would surpass us. Kazak decided to subjugate you before that could happen. Admiral Foster arrived, personally to interrogate the Vorchan commander. After hours of questioning, she emerged from the room with a data crystal and a grim smile. We have their communication protocols, she told Reed, and the locations of every Vorchan outpost in this sector of space. What does that give us? Reed asked. Allies, Foster replied. According to Nexil, we're not the only species resisting Vorchan domination. There are at least 12 others, all isolated, all thinking they're fighting alone. Reed understood, immediately. If we can contact them, coordinate our efforts. Exactly, Foster said. The Vorchans have kept their victims separated, playing up their own strength while hiding their weaknesses. That ends today. Within hours, Earth began broadcasting messages using Vorchan communication frequencies, reaching out to other subjugated worlds. The responses came slowly at first, then in a flood. Messages of shock, hope, and determination from species across the sector. They never expected us to work together, Reed said, as he watched the communications pour in. Their greatest fear is becoming reality. Foster nodded. They mocked our tiny fleet, never realizing it would be their undoing. 6 months after the Battle of Saturn's Rings, Commander Jack Reed, now Admiral Reed, stood on the observation deck of Earth's newest space station. Through the panoramic windows, he watched as ships from a dozen different species moved in coordinated patterns, conducting joint exercises. Quite a sight, isn't it? Admiral Foster asked, joining him at the window. The Alliance fleet now stands, At 117 vessels. Reed nodded, his eyes tracking a sleek ship of Naxian design as it executed a perfect maneuver alongside 2 Earth vessels. And to think, it all started with our tiny fleet of 12. The months following humanity's victory had transformed the political landscape of this sector of space. As word spread of the Vorshan defeat, subject worlds rose up against their weakened overlords. Earth had emerged as the natural leader of this rebellion, sharing their technology and tactics with their new allies. The Vorchans have abandoned their last outpost in the Rigel system, Foster said, checking her tablet. That marks the 12th system to gain independence this month. Reed smiled. And Supreme Overlord Kazak? Still in hiding, Foster replied. But our intelligence suggests his own people are hunting him now. The Hegemony's Central Council has collapsed. Each system is fighting for control. Below them, Earth gleamed like a blue jewel. The planet had changed too. First Contact had united humanity in ways no one could have predicted. Old conflicts seemed petty in the face of a larger universe filled with both threats and possibilities. Reed's communicator chimed. Admiral, Dr. Cooper requests your presence in Bay 4. The prototype is ready for inspection. In the massive construction bay, Cooper waited beside what would become humanity's new flagship. Unlike the defensive vessels of the past, this ship was designed for exploration. The Unity, Cooper announced proudly as Reed approached. First of her class. Twice as fast as anything we had during the war, with adaptations based on technology. From 3 different Alliance species, Reed walked around the partially completed vessel, admiring its sleek lines. How soon until she's ready? 3 months, Cooper said. She'll lead the first joint expedition beyond the former hegemony borders. Unexplored space, Admiral. Reed placed a hand on the ship's hull, feeling the cool metal beneath his palm. Lieutenant Boyd will captain her. Good choice. Cooper nodded. Martinez would have been proud. The mention of Martinez brought a moment of silence. A memorial to those lost during the conflict had been established in orbit, visible from Earth as a bright star during night hours, a reminder of the cost of freedom. Later that day, Reed attended a meeting of the Alliance Council, where representatives from all 17 member species gathered to discuss their shared future. Sub-Commander Nexel, now Ambassador Nexel, represented those Vorshans who had rejected their empire's conquering ways. The last hegemony loyalists have retreated to their homeworld, Nexel reported. They pose no immediate threat to Alliance space. And what of the rumors? Asked the Naxian delegate, her translator converting her musical language to English. The stories of other empires beyond Vorchan space. Reed leaned forward. That's why exploration is our priority now. We need to know what else is out there. After the council adjourned, Reed found himself once again on the observation deck. The Earth rotated below, peaceful from this distance. He thought about how close they had come to losing everything and how an enemy's arrogance had been their salvation. Admiral. Boyd approached, now wearing the uniform of a ship captain. The Unity's bridge systems just came online. Would you like to see? Reed smiled. Lead the way, Captain. As they walked through the station corridors, personnel from a dozen worlds nodded respectfully as they passed. Many wore patches showing Earth's tiny fleet in formation, now a symbol of resistance and hope throughout the Alliance. You know, Boyd said as they entered the transit tube, I still think about what the Vorshans said when they first arrived, how they laughed at our fleet. Reed nodded. Their greatest mistake was underestimating us. They saw our size as weakness, never imagining it could be strength. And now? Boyd asked. Reed looked out at the stars as the transit pod accelerated. Now we remember that lesson. No matter how far we go or how much we grow, we remain humble. We remember that sometimes the smallest fleet can change the course of history. Beyond the station, the united vessels of the Alliance continued their exercises, ships of all designs and origins moving as one, a testament to what could be, accomplished when former enemies became allies, and when those dismissed as weak proved to be the strongest of all.